We'll do a roll call. Chris Beecher, present. Dareth Watchman Moore.
Present.
Carrie Begay.
Present.
Frankie Lee is on his way. Just let me know. He should be here in just a minute. Staff would like to call some people to invocation.
Ernest, you start yourself.
Okay. So, bow our heads. Our Father, we thank you so much that you have brought us here together on this wonderful day that you have provided us. We ask that you guide our thoughts, guide our hearts as we converse with each other so that we can plan for the needy, plan for people that need houses out there. We thank you that you have taken care of our families, you have taken care of all our loved ones around us. We thank you that you always give us hope and peace of mind through your words. We thank you that you have given us the gift of life. You've given us the ability to experience your creation. We thank you so much for that, and we thank you that you have guided our leaders all the way from the community up to the nations. We thank you that you continue to send them their servants so that they can provide advice and they can provide guidance so that decisions can be made and we can move forward. We thank you for this. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much. Staff, we have the announcements to make before we start the meeting.
Next week we have a couple of us who are going down to the next meeting with, there's a roundtable discussion on infrastructure, so we'll be down there for 3 weeks, or 3 days, and then,
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
That seems a bit excessive. So.
Yeah. And,
Now who are the three?
And Thursday we have the construction Indian country, the acceptance. They presented the design specs for NHA, Switchfit, giving us a category for Leon Shirley's design, so we're going to be accepting that on behalf of Mr. Shirley.
All right, well, thank you. I'd like to recognize any guests and visiting officials that we have here. I'd like to introduce them.
Yes, we have Mr. Justin Carl with District 14. He's in the corner, and then their committee members and are here for the presentation.
Great, thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time. Good morning. If I can get a motion to review and adopt the agenda, please.
Mr. Chair, motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
This motion is second to review and adopt the agenda. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. You have it so ordered. If I can get a motion to review and adopt the minutes, please.
Mr. Chair, motion.
Okay, can I get a second?
Second.
Motion and seconded. Motion by Madam Vice Chair, seconded by Commissioner Begay to adopt and review the minutes. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. On to NHA reports. If I can get a motion to review the reports.
Mr. Chair, motion.
Okay, can I get a second, please?
Second.
Okay, it's motion by Madam Vice Chair, seconded by Commissioner Begay to review NHA reports. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. I'll turn it over to staff.
Okay, we have Mr. Carl with District 14 Housing Commission on to present the program that they're working on. So I'll provide the opportunity to Mr. Carl to present any of his committee members. Mr.
Okay.
Carl?
Good morning, Honorable Chairman and Board of Commissioner. I'd like to introduce the District 14 Housing Commission. We have our president, Mr. Leo Largy. He was a former chapter community server, and he is the one responsible to make that a certified chapter. So he's been working out there for quite some time, and he's now representing all the elders out there. We also have Mr. Vicente. He works in the, as a grazing official right now, so he's very much involved with the home site leases. And prior to his position right now, he worked with BIA and worked with all the communities across the Navajo Nation. And right now, he still continues to do that, so. Then we have Laverta Nez. She's come on as a secretary, and she's done very well, has an educational background to help the community as well out there. And then we have Miss Christina Toy. She was working for the chapter on the housing issues, and now is working as part of the Housing Commission for District 14 Housing. So these are the commissioners that are here to be here with you today. You have this packet right here that we prepared for you. The first page is a letter. It's kind of a summary of all the stuff that we went through. We started out July 8th. We had a RDC meeting with the NHA board and also executive staff here. From that meeting, we went, after the meeting, met with Dwayne and some of the executive staff. We went through some discussion. Based on those discussions, there was some questions that were posed. So if you go to Exhibit A, we responded back on those verbal questions. So each one of those are areas that we responded, and there's about 11 issues. Even though 11 issue was not requested as questions, we added on to it. So you'll see that there was basically some of the questions that were answered there in Exhibit A. So we went from that, and some of the things that were requested was a request for chapter resolution, certification of a community-based organization by Navajo Nation Department of Economic Development, U.S. Geological Survey, upfront funding by District 14 Housing Commission, financial audit of Nash City chapter, and available office facility. And so the additional area that was discussed also is demonstration administrative capacity, waiting list information, insurance requirement, administration of construction contract, and how future audits would be dealt with. So all of these you'll see in a strategic plan, and that's in Exhibit E. So based on that, we had another meeting that we set on July 31st, and prior to that meeting we were provided a copy of the NHA letter to Resource Development Committee. So that letter is also noted in Exhibit B. So this is a letter from NHA to Resource Development Committee. So basically was that District 14 Housing Commission did not have, they lacked administrative capacity to carry out affordable housing activities. To establish organizational capacity to carry out housing program services, lack of financial capacity to carry out housing program service. And on the second page of this overview is ability to allocate or identify funds for in housing block grant cost reimbursement and establish financial system audit review for organization. So this was noted in the letter that was sent to RDC. Then also, they basically said in this letter that the useful life was not met by the HUD requirement. So we asked, what regulation did you use to determine what useful life is? So a copy was emailed to me, and that copy was a HUD guidance notice. So whatever was contained in the HUD guidance notice was accepted as a regulation requirement. So when you determine useful life, it depends on what the local condition of the community is. And the reason for the useful life is if someone got a system, they didn't take the house and sold it for profit. That was the main reason why the useful life was inserted into the regulation. So in this case, the NHA was using the HUD guidance notice to determine that was the regulation. So in order to address that, we had discussions with the interim CEO and his staff. And basically what we did is we said, you can go ahead and send a letter to the HUD, Office of Native American Program, and that is an Exhibit C. So that copy of the letter, draft letter that we provided to NHA is an Exhibit C. Basically what the reason why we were told to use that requirement is that we are asking for unrestricted funds, but we're told that all the use of unrestricted fund requires HUD regulation. So although that was what's told to us in recent action by NHA, that's not what's being followed. But nonetheless, we did provide a draft letter to determine what the useful life is. What is different on the useful life on what NHA does and what District 14 Housing will do, the years of service is 15 years. So the years of service for new housing being 15 years is because if you look at your research on an NHA website, basically a large percentage of the families that are on the nomination make less than $15,000. So they can't go long-term, and that was one of the reasons. And so the local economic condition doesn't allow that. The other thing on the useful life, on the rehab of the homes that we provide, is a 5-year loan forgiveness. Under the 5-year loan forgiveness, there is a binding requirement example in the useful life provision. In this case, all we require from the families that we're going to do renovation on the home is they had a notarized statement. That house is their primary resident, and that is their home, and there's no other combining requirements they have to follow. So if you look at the Navajo Nation land regulation, then there's no requirement that we noted that requires a home site lease provision. So that was one of the reasons. Okay. The other issue that was noted was to identify or allocate funds for in-housing block grant cost reimbursement. And that was required upfronting by District 14 Housing Commission. And then NHA would reimburse on costs spent on the project after it was paid by District 14 Housing Commission. So because of this, when we met with the NHA, we told them we will go to the nomination council and request funding. And that way we'll have upfront funding, then you'll reimburse us on the project after we do the project, and we'll pay back the nomination. So we met with the nomination speaker's office and him and some of the council delegate. And the speaker was speaking on behalf of NHA. He said, if we allow this legislation to go before the council, there's going to be a lot of criticism on NHA. So I'm going to take some time and meet with NHA and see if we can work something different. But to date, I don't think he has done that. So we're still waiting that provision of what's going to happen. So if the Navajo Nation Council doesn't do that, then we have to look at private loan from a different company to make it happen. So that's where we are with funding. So that's one of the remaining issue that we haven't come to determination with NHA. And then the other issue is the administrative capacity. The administrative capacity, we provided all the policy and procedures on how the program will be administered. So whoever is hired as the program director, as you'll note in these examples here in the chart, the organizational chart, that person has to follow the policy and procedures. And then all the HUD regulations, and then the procurement policies that are there. So that's basically how this whole program would go. So in the administrative capacity, we're not sure what the NHA is requiring, but from all the other chapters, what they see at NHA is that they're not carrying these type of activities. So does NHA have the administrative capacity to carry out these activities? If they can demonstrate that, then they need to present it back to District 14 Housing Commission. So if you look at these exhibits, those are all information and to provide basically how these programs function. If you look at exhibit E, you'll see the chart of account, you'll see the budget there, and then you'll see the strategic plans in 3 areas. One is the implementing the program and how to make it happen. The other one is implementing the new housing construction. The other one is the renovation of the homes. And then also, in that list is a list of all the waiting lists. You'll see all these waiting lists that we have found. And the number of waiting lists that's complete, there's 19, even though we were only going to build 10 homes. And then as far as rehab, there's 9 that's complete. Then on the second page, you'll see that there's additional waiting lists that are not complete. So there may be issues with not providing all the information or not having the home site leases. So with that, I'm going to provide some time over to Mr. Largy and Mr. Vicente to see if they have any additional comments.
Yeah, okay, hello. How's everybody this morning? Good. Yeah, like I was introduced, my name is Leo Elijah. I'm the chairperson for this housing commission for District 14. And I'm glad we're being here. Yeah. Yeah, we're trying to implement this project on a positive note. And as a certified LGA chapter, we're issued with a self-governance thing. So that's what we're trying to do, just at our own chapter to see what we can do with our self-government chapter. So it's really a challenge thing, and I know it's a lot of work involved. So based on that, this is one of the projects we like to implement it and come to reality. So throughout all this, what we're doing, I hope we can make it through. I know it's involve a lot of money. And what we're looking at is our own people out there. We have some relatives, community people that needed housing. We come to the chapter, mostly every chapter meeting ask for one child sick, but the government itself doesn't even have that money. So on the side, this is we're trying to implement this, what we're doing, this project. So based on that, we need your help and make sure, let's work together, come together. And when we implement this project, it'll be a plus for you guys too. I hope any luck with, thank you.
Good morning, Dante. Hey, how many NHA boards are in here? Who is the NHA board here? Okay, all right. I'm gonna come forward, talk to you guys.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Okay, before I do that, as the our policy, the next policy, we always do that first. We're gonna do that first. On the Kia'ani, on the 5 people, the leader of the tribe, as the Kia'ani. I'm going to do this offer here to the spirit, to let him know I'm here talking to him, to the spirit. And also think about good all of you. Okay, just repeat your prayer from the point. Then after that, I'm going to say something about it, okay? The oath is God is the usual. Then from the room, then ask about the room. My Nutty right here, my grandson over there allowed us to say something. On the Kiaani, Nishla, Tuhi Cleaning, Buses Chain, Nakaitane, Tatane, second Tane, a buses chain. Out on the sender bitly, Tashi Kitty selection, as the club, Tashi chain. Not a second chain, Tashanana, Hotego. This is where I am. I brought my wife here. Is the Zata Sibki Paji, Kitchen Kodangi, Audible. That's who I am, and they call me Leonard. That's my Indian name. Somebody here in the Orbis, I have my own Indian name. My name is Senti, last name. So, North Chili. They call it North Chili. That's where we're from. North Chili means something's good. It's been a good vehicle. Long time ago, the ancestor had a trading post there. There's a white guy come around with a mug tea, that song. So it's the song that Navajo said, Jonah, Anglo, nice, chili, come about. That's how the name come about, nice chili. That's the name of the nice chili, the name. The place called is named after the badger. The badger come around, people at the water came out. Lots of people use it. That's where we're coming from, North Chile. Just briefly information with you, board members. So, the District 14, Unit 1, that's where we're at. And I've been raised there. And I'm raised a traditional way, in that way. And also the on the rancher at the same time, and also the now today the prison official in the area, and oversee the land itself, visitation, and so loves love. That's what I do. So this when we came here, we'll talk about it for our people in our area, and I see. In our area, the housing in one places, which I really disagree with that. In one places, too many people, whatever. It's really not good for us. That's how I see it. Maybe the other tribe is a little better that way. Us Navajo, the net, we don't live that way. We scattered all over that way. That's how we are. According to that, this what we're trying to do for our people. We came up with this, have this inside leases to have that individual, even the ancestors or grandparents, they develop a home themselves without help from anybody else to build a home. And nowadays, all the houses are old. So we're looking at it for our elders. The older people used to say, take care of your elders. That's what we're at now. We're looking at elder, their home. We want to have a safe place to live there. So we came up with this is what we're talking about it. And to rebuild their home. And have the fire in there, have water, food again in there. That's what we want. Also the individual have no home. We want to help them too. Help them. It don't matter if it's a single or the couple or the elder, whoever is home. That's what we need to do. We're gonna try to do that, help our people in that way. And also what we're after is the money. The Mexican they call it peso. Us Navajo we call it peso too. There's no words for that kind of money from our language. So we want that one to ask you to help us assist with that. That money is, the way I understand that money is coming from the federal government. The money is coming. And HOP, they call it different all over the United States. They started with the tribal name first. So our over here, Navajo Housing Authority. the other tribe, that Sioux Housing Authority, other different tribes that have that. The way I understand that money is supposed to help individuals, in the Native American, to help to build a home without cost. That's the way I really understand. I used to be involved with the boss in the wrong, BRA. So that's how I got the information. So that's why we came over here to actually the board member help us with that, assist us, support us in that way. And also according to the 1868 treaty, that doesn't say any term and condition either. Nowadays we do that. We have a little boundary, 1 acre for the home site. After so many years term, had to pay for it too. According to the treaty, it doesn't say anything in there, but we involved with that too. So this home site list from one side as a resident official. Make sure it's up there where the water, there's a big trail there, or the wind go trail, or there's not disturb the vegetation, or any kind of herb medicine. That's what the home is going to be built. Also, I'm going to go ahead and comply with the Navajo Nation Land Department. We keep change their name to now the General Land Department. So you can apply with what they want, we can apply with that. 1 acre, put the fence around it. That's my enforcement, what I'm going to do. And also I'm going to help out our people up there, prison home with the home site lease. The permittee, the one that prison permit holder, I'm going with them too. I'll make sure there's any kind of the concept, housework between it, try to make it understand people to understand it. More like the people, I think they like it, what we're trying to do. They want it, they want to have a new home. That's what they want. So that's how, from my side as a business official. And also, what my grandson is the District 14 housing president, myself, vice president. So, Secretary Radier and assistant member, we're doing it. I'm sure you people here get paid if you're here. We don't. We're here to help our people. We had to pay our own gas money to be over here. So that's why we're here, to help our people. We don't ask for, people, this is how we'll help you, give me something. We're not, some of us, we don't carry it that way. Right now, what we see is the money, that's why we ask you to help with us, to help our people. Thank you for your time. Listen to me. I appreciate it. I hope.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that.
And in closing, in the strategic plan, we had the NHA board making an amendment to the 2020 Inland Housing Plan. So the amendment can happen here internally to comply with the strategic plan on how we're going to do the projects out there. It doesn't require the HUD approval because the money is unrestricted funds. Then as far as the project, whether it's eligible, all the proposal that was in that project, that was requested by former council delegate from District 14, East Navajo, Peterson Yazzie. One was rental assistance, $250 for every person living off the reservation, college students, per month. That project I did for Gila River. So it's nothing that is not ineligible. But we took that one out because NHA had a lot of problems with it. Now, as far as renovation on private homes, up to a maximum level of $90,000, and where it's forgiven over a 5-year period, I done that project for Hopi. And when you go to Hopi, those homes are up on the mesa, very traditional. So we had to rebuild those homes in a very traditional fashion, but inside it was modernized, but outside it still looked very traditional, with maximum level of 70,000. And I had to get crews, I had to train crews, and I had to train all the staff on how it happened, and I had to train the HUD people on how to oversee the project. So we were able to get that done. Now, scattered site is not something that's fairly new. It's pretty much done all over. This commission here is working with the other four chapters. Even though it's primarily under Noshchitty, it's still District 14. So they're working with Twin Lakes, they're working Coyote Canyon, they're Mexican Springs, and Tehachapi. So with that, we hope that we have favorable consideration on what we're trying to do for our people out there. And this will provide benefit to you as a board. And in my tenure previously, I worked very hard to get this legislation under self-determination. And I worked with Senator McCain to incorporate negotiated rulemaking provision into Navajo legislation. So that's how that got in there. I didn't expect to be put in as chairman of the negotiated rulemaking committee, but I was, to work on behalf of the tribe and work with the federal government. So unfortunately, what comes in for the needs component to the Navajo Nation, all of that money is going into the administrative and HUD programs. So very little money. 7 homes for 2018, the money we applied for. Under Southwest and the Foundation was all that was achieved according to the annual performance report. So hopefully with this, we're able to provide assistance to 30 families that are out there, so that at least the needs component of the funding is going out to the chapters instead of being done internally. So with that, thank you very much, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay. Well, thank you for your time, appreciate it, and members of the District 14 Commission, thank you for making the trip out here, we do appreciate it. Any further comments from Dwayne?
No.
Okay. From the board? Seeing none? Thank you very much for coming today, I appreciate the time, and we'll review this too.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you please provide a written answer to our presentation,
Okay.
so we can go ahead and move on with the RDC.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Wacetta, on to your report.
Mr. Chair,
Vice Chair.
just a question to NHA. Did we RFP this sort of project and the idea of, seems like it's similar to the Shanto Commission effort? Did we elevate? I don't recall us issuing an RFP and, the funding source identified. And, I think Shanto was fairly successful. I think administrative capacity is always the question and always the concern. Anytime in my tenure, I don't recall us issuing an RFP for such a proposal.
It's really the proposals usually is during the grant year when we get the IHP, we'll ask for proposals. But when Housing Authority abolished the subrecipient program, the RFP advertisement was ceased and then.
Okay. So, all right. So I guess after we abolished the subrecipient program, we haven't. Okay.
3 years.
It's been about 3 years ago. Yeah.
3 years now.
Okay. All right. Just for the record, I was a little confused here. Thank you.
Morning.
Good morning.
Before you use report for the September, the executive office. This was a short month for me, so when the closeout we had for September with the Indian Housing Plan, we had the final at the end of the 2019 lots drawings at 212. So we brought that down. It's below the 3-time language that people were concerned with, but we still made that benchmark of bringing it down to 212 on the lock system. So in terms of the HUD consultations, we submitted a grant for the Ross. It's a grant that was that we looked at through for financial literacy, substance abuse. This will go hand in hand if we start looking at transition from getting individuals going from public rental to home ownership. So this program is a grant will help with that. The other portion is the substance abuse, looking at activities for some of the areas that we are having areas being reported of a high increase of abuse out there with some of the younger individuals. So we're looking at the possibility of there's a max that we could receive of $700,000, but there's $35 million in this grant proposal. So it was accepted, and if awarded, if it's awarded, it'll be February 3rd of 2020 and it'll be for a three-year period or 2-year period and then what we'll do is we'll put 25% of our IHP to match it, and that we can blend our crime prevention and our housing services money together. So it's kind of a partnership. So that's out there for grant monies that we submitted. The other ones that I handle with the Indian Housing Plan was the Crown Point Office and Youth. We continue. We put it through the procurement process, and the architect has now asked for another $25,000. And it's getting to a point that we cannot do this thing. And I'm planning a meeting next week or so, or the week after, once I can get confirmation from the Navajo Nation. We told Navajo Dene Youth that they need, if this is going to move forward, we can't expend more HUD funds on their IHP. That if they have the CSN funds, they need to utilize that to cover this $25,000. So that's a discussion. And so we're still moving on that portion and going forward. The other part of the Indian Housing Plan, we submitted a 4th quarter progress report for the modular units. NHA, we didn't receive feedback, but during our Wednesday conference call with the HUD staff, they emailed me the final response. They extended the completion of it because we had problems with the sewer connections up in Kaibito. And so they extended it to March for the final closeout. That's what we figured that we're going to have. Once we can do that, get it occupied, we'll close that finding out. Part of that discussion there, in that letter that they're telling us with this finding from 2018, is that they closed out the flex creep. That's no longer an issue with HUD, so we gave them all information that they needed. And then we closed out the tenant file that was continuous. So the continuous tenant file issue that was there, we provided them all the supporting documents, so they closed that out. So the only one left is the modular, which will close out on that portion. We have 15 units that we had part of the modulars, and we put in a report that we're asking for a credit change order to close that out, which Land Corporation is willing to pay us back for that. Dave Sutherland says that they have the request, so they're going to give us a separate letter saying that those monies can be utilized for development. It won't be taken back. We can utilize it for, if we want to, instead of putting modulars, we'll build stick built, we can use the monies for that. So that's something that, once we get the letter, then we get to close out that contract by March, then we reinitiate that. We have all the design drawings for there, we have the paperwork in place, and we got so it's just, once we get that notice, we can retool the project out in that area. So the project won't be lost, all in the endeavors that we've done here. So it's still, that was good for us. In progress, going on with part of the HUD, GMD and HUD came together. They performed a yearly, we're going to look at this as a yearly requirement for all subrecipients, where they have to take Navajo training. What we're finding out is that there's a high turnover with these subrecipients or travel programs, which is causing reporting problems. So we implemented this yearly Navajo training requirement for them, so they know what their requirements is in terms of the program that they're overseeing. So that is, we kicked it off a couple weeks back, 3 weeks ago. So that was good. So we're planning for next year for so every year they have to take these retraining. So because there were some programs there that the managers, the program managers were maybe 1 or 2 years in and they left, and it's impacted the staff didn't know what they need to do reporting. So this gives us more guidance and more oversight on those subrecipient per the Navajo requirements. So the other part of it is that, as you know, we've put together, there's 2 things going on with HUD. The roundtable discussion came up at last minute. Rebecca from Phoenix is the one that notified me through, I guess Heidi wanted us there from Housing Authority. So we got that email a couple days there. So 2 weeks ago, we started formulating questions going at everything that we have reservation-wide. What we came up with on topics that was discussed that we're looking at is we had several different teams set up in terms of that we took, and we looked at agreements and partnerships with other federal agencies, IHS, Department of Energy, and the internal governance programs that we have, like NQA has their area. So we voiced our concerns that with the procurement areas there has some language in there about programs having conflicts, and that within that procurement area we asked them, then that wording needs to be changed. But the sentiment or the response we gave from HUD says we gave them our voice, our concern. They said noted. But they're going to give us an opportunity to provide us a written recommendations in areas. The other portion that came up there was the environmental review record.
Yay.
But this was a hot topic. 3 to 4 years ago, we went through the same public hearing with HUD. We brought that up again. Why are they not using our recommendations as giving them to the tribe? Because I thought they modeled NHA at that time and said NHA has taken over their environmental review process. Other tribes have the capacity to do that instead of waiting on HUD to do the paperwork. So I asked Heidi to go back and look at those notes, because those are still barriers that people need to build on because it changes from BIA. The other portion that we tipped on is with some of the federal programs that we have, like USDA. And we asked them about the infrastructure. I told them that Navajo Nation is faced with 60-year-old infrastructure, and we as NHA have the capacity to fill due to grants on behalf of the end user. But on the USDA program requirements, it says that the grantee, which is applying for, must be the operator of the systems that are being, so it eliminates NHA to apply. So we asked that for some of these organizations that programs who, if they can change those later, change those languages at legislative top from the government. And that was one of the things that Louisiana tribe and Chickasaw are having major problems with. them not able to apply for monies because they're not the person who operates and maintenance those utilities or sewer systems. So it was the same type of concerns across Indian country of what we were voicing, some of these smaller tribes were faced with. So that was one of the areas that we looked at. That the other part that came up was the Section 8. Section 8, because of the tribes, and we're asking what are the possibilities of housing authority growing out our Section 8 too, because all of our monies is going to border towns. And border towns, fair market rate are running $1,500 or higher. So how can we utilize some of our old 1937 that are FCAT, non-FCAS counted? The comment was basically, yeah, you can do it, because it has no HUD restrictions there. So that's something that we need to explore, because in Chickasaw, they're saying that they got deemed for that because they set up their program and they said that they can't use Section 8 for monies coming back. So that's something I think for ourselves, with the people that we took notes when we're going to contact some of those tribes and kind of bounce off some of the ideas from what they're faced with.
Have we talked about doing like a buyback program and then utilizing homes that have already been conveyed, or people maybe aren't using that are boarded up, buy those back up and then utilize them for Section 8 as well?
Yes, we could. Is once it's taken off the FCAS, and from the responses that HUD has no say over those units. So this is one thing that we've looked at in terms of the crisis out here. I've met with Ms. Cotty and Ms. So from Shiprock. There's a big need for women's shelters, better. So our thoughts is, since some of these home ownership units are in areas that can be renovated and adapted to that, we're going to be exploring that area if the tribe was willing to, because there's only one that we have, and I believe that's up in Utah. So, but it's not fully, because of the distance, it's not fully utilized. My understanding, Rama, Sanders, and Fort Defiance is sending majority of their people down to Zuni because they have a program, like they have housing. So there's a little bit of, so I think that's something that we can explore with some of these areas of some of these barriers. So I brought that out, and we got some recommendations. As long as it's not FCAS, you guys can do whatever you want. And then utilizing your program funds, your equity, whatever is built there. The other part of the
Let me stop you right there. Just everyone to float some idea that came to me at not too long ago, and your comment reminded me of that. So we're talking about women's shelters. They're trying to get the Shiprock thing off the ground and get that going. And that I understand that having to send people down further away is an issue. One thing that came to me is like, well, what about the unit out there in Cosnino area that one turned that into a women's shelter, which might be helpful because of the remoteness of it. We just have to we'd have to kind of somehow create a partnership with the tribe to run it, or with the social services division.
You mean the big house?
Yeah. I mean, like, it doesn't
Yeah.
seem like it would be a good candidate.
It's kind of way out there,
Well, and that's kind of, which is probably what is more
security. Yeah.
security-wise. You probably want that. It's just more a matter of trying to track down through the tribe O&M to fund the operation. But I think that in that capacity, that's something where it'd be like, well, let's
It's like a hideaway. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, and then I don't know where else we could do it, but I mean, just trying to set that up. I think what it really comes down to is trying to get with council and the executive office and advocate for O&M to just say it's sitting there. Let's get this rolling. It seems like low-hanging fruit to some extent, because here we are in Shiprock. They're trying to get that one off the ground and finished. We got a unit that's finished there that would be maybe ideal for something like that. So there was an idea. Not looking for an answer one way or the other right this second, but I thought maybe it might put that on everybody's mind, is that might be something that we could get off the ground pretty fast if we can get buy-in from the council and from the executive office for O&M. So some sort of partnership there.
I think that's a great idea.
So,
It just makes sense. I mean, the infrastructure's there. It's just having somebody to run it
and that's,
and
yeah.
maintain it.
Yeah.
We can go more into it later.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Also, part of the discussion that we had, that was an issue I brought up, is the 184. What recommendation would you give the tribes on with the 184 process? Because what's happening with nations, that there's really nobody to finalize that environmental review record on the nation. So that's kind of been stonewall. People are coming to us to do it. So I told them what areas we have, and the comments was basically from the other tribe from Washington was that they created their own program for 184 to handle some of the process that the financing companies can't handle. So there is a barrier for us on that, like when you do 184 or veterans. Where do they get the final approval for the president to sign it to get the project through? So the last one that was a major issue that that was brought up and we voiced and it's not a barrier anymore, was the floodplain. Tribes voiced the floodplain because of FEMA, but my presentation wasn't voicing the barrier, was telling the tribes that through the programs they have funds in the Nahaza. If those Nahaza area agents can help them in establishing a floodplain program with them there versus having to depend on FEMA. So I think all in all, when we get the date for the submittal for the written write-up, we'll finalize that. We'll have everybody putting those together that were part of the team. So everybody will have a responsibility of researching some of the areas with the laws that's and language that needs to be changed for those areas that for housing.
Dwayne, are you going to put all this in writing with the recommendations? Okay.
All of it's gonna, because it's gonna, apparently, what we received was a letter from the presidential document. So they'll have the executive order that was done, so all our comments go back to that executive order. So we'll document it that way. Similar fashion we did the environmental review record. They had it posted on the website, our comments, and then we did the one for the written comments to HUD. But yeah, it was kind of just a discussion as, okay, we'll note it, and then no, they didn't really go into detail to provide that. They were just there as a listening session.
Oh, okay.
So that's kind of but we did reserve some time with Heidi afterwards, talked for about 20 minutes, and one of the things is just basically she's saying that all of the stuff that was passed that you see that hasn't been changed with the ERR, bring those back up, and then the new requirements that's hindering. See, like we've mentioned, the 184, the stuff for the veterans, and then the partnerships, because she says that it is true that Indian Health Service does have the language in the 1999 CFR that their monies will not be utilized with Nahaza. So she says we've been working that angle, but I think we hear it from the tribes. So we're saying we have some recommendations, and this goes into the reauthorization. I'm not sure if you had a chance to look at that bill from Mr. Hick. There's a clause they added in there saying that the money is from Nahaza and IHS will be used for new developments. And that's a plus for us if that goes through. So those looking at that, one thing we recommended was adding in language for USDA, Department of Energy, because a lot of tribes are wanting to go green, renewable energy, but they're not having the connection to use monies to partner up. So I think by us leading out that and giving some recommendation, because my thoughts on there from the round table is that HUD's not going to research. We're going to have to research for them and give them those recommendations to put it into, and that goes back to this reauthorization of HAZA. So that's kind of the area for the HUD stuff. The progress reports that, in progress that we had last month is that we started the CEO recruitment. We got job descriptions finalized. We got that brochure in place. So that should go out in the streets this coming Monday. We'll talk with Josh. So that's all. The interview, we had interviews with compliance manager. And so we've selected a person that has experience with financial audits, and has worked in the past with several different auditing firms and even the Navajo Nation. And I should announce, then we've selected Ms. Calandra City. She's sitting down there. She come in November 5th, she'll take on the role. She's worked with the Auditor General for several years. She has a background with the Navajo Nation and the external auditing firms. So it has the credentials for the last 15 years with auditing. So the policy revision aspects of it, the procurement policy, that one is still, there's some wording in there we have to run by board and looking at that, so we can discuss that later in the day, some of those areas of recommendation if we really want those wording in. The equity reserve, we're going to bring that back after the presentation this afternoon with some investment of how we're going to put that together with what funds we have. So we did an overhaul on that equity reserve policy. The whistleblower policy was supposed to meet, we didn't get it in time for a resolution, so it'll be finalized next month. And that's something that we'll bring back. The 2020 budget, we approved them last month, and as we went through the processes, we actually split it up into 4 different categories. So now we can manage the funds a lot more to identify who's doing what. We're actually drilling down a little further into the operation maintenance. We're going to be rolling out for next year projections, how much work is 1937, how much projections in the HAZA for the units, so we can actually utilize the 1937s for those units versus having to be using the HAZA funds to subsidize those. So we're drilling down to that next level on that area there. As you know, we have that construction Indian country. We were selected for the award category for outstanding community enrichment, which will be on the 7th in Harris down in Auction. So there will be, we got the tables and everything all set up, so we'll be going, just let us know and we'll be there. This is one thing because, Madam Chair, this is the units we use for ERA.
Really?
Out there in 90 units we use for ERA for Yumbato, Vicente, Chimbato. So those units there, we took those units and then retooled them for there. So everybody likes that design concept. So
Good deal.
So that was something that was good to hear. That the other portion that's in progress, we got to the next step with credit services. And credit services now is really engaging. So as soon as we give them a kind of a listing of projects that possibly funding, they want to sit down with us and look at how much they can contribute and what roles we have. So this will probably be one model if we want to keep, say, we look at employee housing. We can utilize the travel funds and we can utilize some of our own investment monies together. So there's no federal restrictions there. So what we're looking at is trying to stay with, because if we use travel funds and our funds together, it's a more empowerment to the community, saying, hey, we're leveraging our own resources within the nation to make housing available for our employees. So
So that's rolling out good. So we kind of got everything in place. Ray's and Calandra taking the lead on that portion. So they've been really collaborating with the department manager and the director.
Yeah. Mr. Chair, I have a question. Another partner in mine, the Navajo Nation Housing Services, where they receive some funding from BIA and other sources to grant homes. With the presentation this morning and the issue and the concern regarding capacity and sharing the wealth, you might say, beyond District 14. I mean, could we provide funding to housing services to do the same thing that this commission is asking to do? That way it's more central and more controlled and better managed under the tribal umbrella?
Madam Chair, yes, you're correct. The monies can be allocated through them, and we can go through agreement with the nation for that. My understanding is that only reason why credits or not housing services move back is that they're funding what the HIP program that was funding majority of the program was not reported well from the nation. So that's where they lost the opportunity with BIA.
Oh, they lost it?
Yeah.
Oh, geez.
And
That's
so
unfortunate, yeah.
But that was a whole new, but they're still in existence. So I think the changes that have been corrected, but that's some opportunity to look at in terms of
It's
that
under
area.
Dr. Yolen. I think that would be awesome.
Yeah, I think that'd be a really good way to kind of take a certain segment, spread it out. That's, I guess more addressing the entire needs of the entire Navajo Nation in the best capacity, because they have people there ready to go, and I think it'd be probably more beneficial. I thought about that same thing when we were at the housing conference earlier in the year.
Yeah.
That there's these community development area. There's what's the place called? They do the sewer lines and water lines within community development.
CBG?
Yes, yeah. And partnerships with them as well, I think would be a better way to try to manage some of those things, especially when they're not getting the amount of funding that
Right.
they probably could use.
And reduce a lot of conflict, you might say.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But there's opportunities there. We can revisit those areas. But I think just got to be mindful of past performance. Make sure that they have everything because we used to give them money in the past, and I believe in the early 2000s.
Oh, that's
So
right.
we just need to revisit them back and see what changes and what improvements have they done for their program.
Yeah.
Well, I think putting the controls in place is paramount, and so I think that as long as we all come to an understanding of what the controls will be, we can manage that aspect of it. But
Yeah. I think there's hope with new leadership.
Right.
I think meeting with them.
So this, my thoughts on this would offset us having to be the nation between the housing services and direct contact with the chapters.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
they
yeah.
will take that responsibility for
Yeah.
the projects.
Yeah.
I will be as the fund.
The funder.
The fund matrix for them. I'll look into that.
Yeah, thank you.
The other area that we've looked at for funding, we had Navajo Nation established the CDFI program, and we've looked in that. We talked with the individual there. Now we'll just put more discussion into that with the presentation that we have with our investment firm. But when I was listening to, we seen you on the Senate Indian Affairs. Ray says, "Hey, there's boss there." And we had to double tick, and I had to go back, and sure enough, we seen you in the back of Max out of Zuni out of Sleda. Well, I called him after everything and touched base with him. They're using their housing CDFI to fund their own tribal. And he says that they started with a small nest egg of $3 million from the casino, and then from there they had other funds come in. But that had them offset some of the requirements that they were struggling with, because SLED is in the floodplain, the whole valley. Because of federal funds, they could not bill certain areas, but when they went into their own lending, they abolished that. They didn't have to follow the federal requirements. So I'm trying to set up a meeting with them, or else the tribe there, but that's something that we want to look at. That's where the partnership from Navajo Nation programs and credit services, how's that, how can we leverage those? Instead of looking at outside sources like what we have been doing in the past, how do we look at our internal resources? So it's a discussion that we'll go into later in the afternoon.
I think that'd be a great idea. So to get some context to that, I happened to be out in DC for a class 2 weeks ago, and saw that there was a hearing on Indian housing lending at the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs, and so I'm like, I'm going to go to that. So I stopped and sit in the audience, and that's kind of what you guys are talking about. But what was really interesting about the Isleta Pueblo, that their I guess failure rate on the loans is 0%. Like everybody that they fund stays in the home. They've created a program. In order to get a home under that lending program, you go through several different classes and several different trainings over a certain amount of time. And the foreclosure rate is basically 0. They've had everybody they've funded has stayed in the home, and they're able to continually be in the home. And the numbers are pretty amazing. Obviously, there's the scale issue, and we're talking about going to take something like that to Navajo, but they've got some sort of method that I think that, if you've already reached out to them, great. But there's a lot of people at the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs, as well as some of the people that talked as giving testimony, who have some methods that seem to be working for Indian country. One of the big issues that they're having the Senate hearing to begin with was why commercial banks like Bank of America and Wells Fargo really won't go on to tribal trust land and lend out money. And it's not an issue just for us, it's an issue Indian country wide. And I think that they're trying to address some of those issues, but the thought occurred to me while I was sitting there in the audience that I think us as Navajo Nation can also do exactly that, create the CDFI and be lending out to ourselves and as well as other tribes. And with Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae out there buying those portfolio loans, we can come up with some sort of method that allows us to self-fund as well as have somebody else service the loans and create that investment opportunities for Navajo families, and maybe other tribes in Indian country could utilize us in the same type of way. So I think that's a possibility, but there's definitely, I think, some areas to talk with best practices with other tribes in Indian country, especially the ones that are at the hearing.
So by watching that and looking at that's where we started exploring these other areas, all of the possible fund source within the nation versus relying on some of the external because of Wells Fargo. We have a client that came to us and she's trying to solidify her 184 loan, but she's having to just do everything herself. And poor thing, she's getting frustrated because the bank has the money, but they tell me you have to do all of this stuff here. So we're trying to figure out how do we help her with what the house and stuff. So we're trying to figure that model out, and the only way we're saying as well, when we talk with credit services, bring us the client, make sure the house is under this price. If they meet all the requirements here, we'll fund them. And that's why we're in the last 2 months or 3 months we've been really looking at that. How do we bridge our resources that's within the nation, because the nation does have a lot of resources. It's like a lot of, when I tell them about credit services, nobody knows about credit services lending because everybody thinks it was abolished and it's gone, but it's back. But they have a lot more tighter restrictions. So, but we'll go into that this afternoon discussion. The other portion of that's ongoing, we talked about those concerned about the navigator system. We have Cinta on board. We're doing the workflow. We're supposed to come out November 7th.
And basically, it's going to go through the Navigator system workflow for the accountings, the AP, the revenue, all of the different areas there, and test those modulars. So that's what we're working on now, setting up that workflow for them to run tests on that. The other component of this, what Ernest and them are working on, part of this is the whole network aspects of it. So in the last one of the areas too, from outside the president's office, we had since you guys noticed that there was Senator Elizabeth Warren and Holland. They were requesting questions on identifying the amount of funding need to address Navajo housing. We just took the information that we had that from the previous demographic and gave that information. I said, this hasn't changed, but most likely has increased. I said, we were talking $9 billion at one time. But it says the need is there. There's still, the infrastructure is highly costly for Indian country, and that there has to be some type of legislation to support those infrastructure developments. So we provided that information, and then how would federal legislation help address Navajo Nation needs? That was a blend between some of the other programs that they had with NTUA and the Department of Transportation, I think it was theirs. I never got the full response back, but I asked Milton Blue House to give me what they presented, so we at least have that for our record. So I'll ask for it again. Hopefully I can acquire that information. Meetings. One of the things, we still have continuous meetings with President Nez and Amber Cotty regarding the women's shelter. They're having a little bit of a disconnect on there, but we're working through some of those. You're copied on one of the emails there, but we're working through that. But I think one of the things that, if we look at some of the old 1937 houses, that we can help that little strain reservation-wide and safe houses there. We had that. We continue to have the HUD, the IHP conference call. And this is helpful because it's actually, if they have questions, they don't have to wait. We do it kind of an outline agenda, the project reporting, anything dealing with updates we have, clarification, and we just kind of go through all the projects we have on the IHP, and then correspondence that they're questioning on where we at with this certain area. So it's really helpful. It's Dave, Cheryl. Since Dave still oversees Phoenix, so Dave's on the call, Leticia, so several of the staff from Denver, Phoenix, and Albuquerque are on that call. So it's working to better employ better disseminate information. The last of the big meetings that we had that was the employee benefit plan. It's a hard decision that I had to do after going through the calculation. We had to raise the premium by 10%. It's never been raised over 9 years. We kept the premium that from, let's say, 2009 when we first purchased them. It's just been flatlined. NHA, with the high cost of medical claims and everything, NHA was paying a lot out. So we had to increase it, that 10%. So on average on the employee paid, it's about $2.50. It wasn't dramatic, but we put that gave all the employees a notice that we had to raise it because of the high costs of what NHA is paying out. So that has been finalized. We met on it with Ally and gave us a couple of options. And the big one thing that there was the stickers that if we continue at a flat line, NHA will still be paying a lot more than because we were concerned about our costs that we're having to pay out. So I made a decision and that we're going to raise it 10%. So let's move forward. I haven't heard any kind of written complaints, so staff have to accept that because we kind of gave an outline how much certain wage scale, this is how much you're gonna pay, maybe $1 or whatever you're paying, how many people. So that's been taken care of. Trainings for, I don't have any trainings lined up. And so we're having to, we're looking at a lot of the internal online stuff, so, and we're keeping that kind of flowing with myself, so. The compliance monitoring, as you know, we got email come the Wednesday the 30th. RDC chair requests us to present the update, the fourth quarter update of the 29 IHP and in our plan for the 2020. So we've done a same one pager or 2 pager all on 1 page that we can run through, and then we'll provide them an update, not an oral report, but a written report on the cap. So that will be provided to them. So that will end my short report for the activities for the month of September.
Okay. Any questions from the commissioners?
Regarding, Mr. Chair,
Madam Vice Chair.
regarding the Crown Point Youth Center, you said that the problems presented are more or less indicating that it's a no-go for NHA now, or that we've already expended to our budget limit, that the Navajo Nation is going to have to expend its own funds?
Well, we've expended $1 million on A&E design work.
Okay.
So we came back to board, we can fund the 25,000, but if we're gonna get a choir to do the change order, we'll have to come back to the board asking for that increase again to 25. And a lot of the changes was contributed to Mr. Dougal asking him to do this. And it was just an email. So the consultant did a lot of work. Now he come back and say, hey, I want paid for this before I do anything. So we paid him on that, on some of those areas, but he come back now, he says, well, we expended this area here, there's no money for the contract management of this. So all we told him that all he needs to do is just to RFI, we're gonna do all the contract management. So he brought down his cost a little bit, but it's still at 23,000 for the whole year. So we can, that's some of the discussion that we're thinking about, we can use the IHP monies that we have just to get it done, or else we ask CSN to cover that portion. So that's one thing that we haven't made that final determination. So we're still going to bill it, but it's going to figure out how we're going to bill it.
All right.
Who requested the change?
Previous boss.
Okay. Any further questions?
None from me.
Okay.
I'm done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. We'll move on to the next report. Mr. Franklin.
Morning,
Good morning.
Commissioners and Cheryl. My report is under tab 3. And you got the first table there.
As far as the Navajo labor force that's being used for our projects, we have PMIX had hired during the month of September six Navajo employees. Mainly they're pretty much their whole workforce there. That's to do the street lights. Sowers had 17 for the Window Rock Phase 3. They're just starting that one out. Sowers also has Fort Defiance, which is down the road there. They have 43 employees there, Navajo employees there, 3 women. They have also Chilchimbito. They have 9 employees there, and they have 1 lady there that works. Kariai has 39 Navajo employees there. Then Lamb Rockford over in Kaipito, they are closing that project's coming to a close. They still have 14 Navajo employees there, and they have 2 Navajo women, and those 2 individuals are superintendents. We also have Sowers doing Crown Point exterior rehab 28 employees there. 2 of them are women. And then also the rehab for Navajo, there's 26 there, and one woman. And then the subcontractors for all the projects, a total of 29 Navajo employees and 4 women. And then also we have maintenance temporary hires, there's 84. So if you turn the page over, you'll see the totals there. 295 Navajo employees were employed for the month of September, and 14 women. Okay, the next chart there you have there is the procurement activity for major repairs. There are some corrections that have to be made. Since these were rebid, they were given new IFB numbers. So for the we are still for the first one there, it's AZ 12003, which is over in Chinle. There's 105 units there. We are in the middle of it's 460. Okay, so we got a number there now, 460. That just was issued an RFP. So then, so now we have a number. That means that we are ready for actual advertisement. And then we have 1505, which is over in Theru. Original number was 418. It's now 467 because of the rebid. So that is out to advertisement now, right?
No, it's,
The
we just had the opening. We just had it Wednesday. Bid opening was Wednesday.
Okay.
Remember, this is September.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we had a bid opening this month, but this is all according to what happened in September. We also have 1504, 30 units over in Crown Point. The original number was 420. That's now 468, and we have a bid opening for that. And then we also have 20 units, 1580 over in Alamo. That's now 471. Went from 423 to 471.
Bid opening Monday.
And then we have a bid opening on Monday. We also have the Arizona 2 sites there for a total of 40 units. The RFP number or the IFB number is 470 now. And we're going to have that bid opening here
It was
last week. So those are the procurement activities for all the exterior work for major repair. For the construction procurement, we have the 16 scattered sites. Those sites have now been revised. We took a lot of the concrete out, took the driveways out. We took we're now going with a suspended floor system. So we're going to really limit the concrete on that project. And so that one will be ready to go back out to bid as soon as we get the final drawings on that. And then we have 1544, which is Little Water. There was a bid opening for that. The bids came in under budget, so we are ready that should be coming for the board next month for recommendation of award. ADA retrofits 14, it went out to bid. The bids came in pretty high, wasn't it? Nolan?
Yes, they were high. So we're doing a value engineer on the drawings, so bring that cost down.
And they're pretty much, these ADA projects are more like what they call modernization, because it's not just retrofitting them now. We're looking at the whole house, meaning there's some that have damaged roofs, damaged floors, damaged cabinets, things like that are throughout the house. So that's where that's at. We did one bid over in Twin Lakes, 1530. That was also a burnout, but the bid came in extremely high on that. So we're gonna try to include that as part of the 16 and go back out and package that together so we can at least get a lower, we're hoping that we'll get a lower cost on that one unit out there. That's for the procurement activities for construction management. Okay, and then there's highlights there. Exterior updates. We have the Torion is completed and has been in the final process, closeout process. There's 20 units there, 60 units over in Navajo. We are at 9.9%. 40 units at there's 3 sites on this one, and they are an average of 21.5% completed. So those units are the ones that are actually in construction now. For construction services division, we have 4 contracts going on right now. We have the Chichumbato, Fort Defiance, Kari'ai, and the newly one that was issued is the Window Rock Phase 3 public rental. So these are all going pretty well. Chichumbato is at 75, Fort Defiance down there is at 80%, Kari'ai is at 54%, and Window Rock is at 6%. So they're moving along quite well. And then we have also new development. We have 36 units over in Kaipito public rental. The streets were completed, were completely paved, and we're right in the middle of doing the final phase of that project. So we're getting pretty close. We probably, I don't know if we would want to have a open house on that project. It looks pretty sharp out there. And then as far as the other projects we had the Tuba City HMO building. That building now has been completely demolished. They have all the employees have been relocated, and Don over there has been reconnecting them and making sure that they're back online so that they can interact with the central office. I'd like to thank him for that. He's had his crew out there doing whatever they can to make that happen. And then also we have the Tuba City Road construction. We had the ribbon cutting on that. Everybody was happy about that project. The next phase on that project is basically just to give the right-of-way back to BIA for operation and maintenance. There's 3 SWIFT units that are going on. We are going to have an open house in November. All 3 are, well, we did have an open house over for the one in Upper Fruitland. Now we have the 2 over in Bennett Freeze area, so those 2 are pretty much complete. They're just on the final cleanup phases. We have one tenant has already moved in, and the other one is just on the verge. They're just getting ready. They're just getting the meters.
You said that was a Swift house?
That's a Swift house, yeah.
It's in the Bennett Freeze area?
It's in the Bennett Freeze.
How'd you get outside their normal 60-mile radius? We made an agreement with them as far it was an MOU, and they were able to get contractors within that area. And these are units that were shipped down from Colorado Springs, from the Air Force Academy, I think it was. And that's why, and instead of shipping them, usually ship them down to Gallup, and then they have that 30-mile radius. But instead, they just ship them right straight to the sites. And how did that turn out?
It turned out great. It's pretty nice.
Wow.
I think Dwayne wants to say something.
So we might have a different business model here?
Yeah.
Well, the way this happened was Jeremy contacted us about 1.5 years ago, and he says, I have 2 units, I have nowhere to place. I says, we'll take them. So we got the locations, everything. Ernest was at one point of tightening up the corner, so we just basically did a memorandum of agreement with him that will pay for the house, and then they'll take care of the other portion. So the house, instead of going to Gallup, went straight over there, and it went very well. And so 2 of the houses in Bennett Freeze are built by the military. So that's something that he says, we know we can do it now. So how do we look at this? How do we expand on it? So it's something that we're kind of looking at with him. The only thing with him is that he needs a little bigger space. He says, give me 5 more acres somewhere. He says, I can probably produce more to help some other areas. But my thing is, what we've been talking with, how do we expand what he's developed there? What tools, what areas? Take that model, put it somewhere on that side. So that's
Yeah,
one thing
yeah.
that we've been in discussion with. So. Yeah, we tried it, worked.
Yeah.
Good.
That's what happens when you take a little bit of a risk.
So, last one on that list is the solar streetlights. We are, it says 79%, but we are now at 90 to 93% complete. We did the training for the maintenance people because that's just how to, how to replace light bulbs, how to do the batteries, things like that. And that training went on last week, or this week and last week. So that completes the construction activities. We have the next table there is the taxes collected on our construction projects there. We have the MRD projects, all 5 are listed there. For the month of September, we collected 33,233 for all 5 there. And the year to date on those ones is 86,851. And then on the solar street light, we collected 37,779. And then year to date is 224,653. And then we have the modernization or the new development projects there. We have a total of 20,1582. Year to date on that is 595,088.91.
Commissioner McGee, you got a question?
Yeah, thank you and good morning, everyone. Just before you go any further away from the solar streetlights,
Yes.
we did receive a request from Ganado School District. Did you read that?
No, I haven't.
Did you receive it, Dwayne?
Yeah, we got an email last
Okay.
week, last
Yeah.
Wednesday, yeah.
And I was also CC'd on that, and they are requesting 2 solar lights right by the road at the Burnside,
Junction?
yeah, so that, I think they're only asking for 2, so, the students can go back and forth. They are making that road a lot safer for the high school students who live at Innickshea there. And they were just asking if we could put 2 solar lights there. So those that travel, walk across after school, it's getting later and the sun's going down. So just to be safe, is there a way that we could put the 2 there? Because when you go around that campus, that compound there, there's solar lights are there, but some of them are not working. So if we could put 2 additional by where they are requesting the walkway for the students, if that's possible, or if we could have, PEMEX, do in-kind service for those 2, or somehow work it out to where we could at least, help the school make it a lot safer for the students. So,
Yeah.
if we could take a look at that.
From the letter I read, we need to sit down with him soon, because we can help, because it's going to be part of the program, but it's outside of our lease, so we'll probably not use any of the HAZA funds. And then kind of product description, what kind of unit they're looking at, because if you notice the stuff that the ones they put up from the tribe here, they don't illuminate, they only illuminate a certain area. And so that's kind of what I need to touch base with them, what kind of product they may be looking at. And then one thing is the liabilities with Arizona. If we pay for it, somebody runs in it and they say, hey, NHA, you own this. But we can do that because that's within the realm of the housing there. It's just opening that dialogue with them.
If you could, Chris.
We'll follow through.
Thank you.
Any other questions? And then, of course, the total
the total taxes collected on the SWIFT for work that's being completed on the Navajo Nation was $23,751. And then for the Tuba City Road construction, we collected $61,801. So altogether, we've collected $992,174 for the projects listed there. And then for the modular projects that are going on right now, we've collected for the month of September, we collected $112,154. Year total there is $552,979. So altogether, we've collected $1,545,126 as far as nomination tax.
So we've got that report coming up next Wednesday. Can you make sure that we get all those tax figures into the report when we present it to RDC?
We will, because that shows how much we're contributing back to the revenue of the nation.
And we'll also include the labor, how much labor we do.
Commissioner McKay.
For, you keep stating we collected.
No, no, I'm sorry.
These are taxes that the contractors pay the Navajo Nation. It's not something that we collect and is in our accounts, correct?
No, yeah, I'm sorry, yeah, it is something that the contractor pays to the Navajo Nation collects.
Okay.
We as the Navajo Nation.
Yeah.
But yes, Navajo Nation, not Navajo Housing Authority.
Yeah. Okay, so that concludes the construction activities and procurements on ongoing projects that are listed on the IHP. There's one other report that came in right after my report went out to publication that has to do with the new projects that are now for new development. I had the division put together a table as far as all the letters. Finally, NTUA finally responded back by doing all the utility analysis, capacity analysis on all the sites that we have. So there's some that we have a go, but there's some that we actually have to add additional components to the system to make it work. Let's go on. I'm just going to go down the list here. The Window Rock Apartments that's being proposed there. They said that there's not adequate water system, but there is going to be there is capacity for their sewer capacity there. It's just a matter of us providing our own tank system, our own pressure zones, so we can pump up the water up to some storage tanks that were part of the design, and then we feed that back into our units. So that the RFP included that language to hire a hydrologist so that they can calculate what the capacity and what kind of booster stations we're going to need, things like that, to make that place feasible.
Madam Vice Chair.
I think that's an issue to bring up to the RDC regarding community water needs versus the NHA need. I think that I'll continue to say that NHA shouldn't be in a position to upgrade the community's water system for the utility provider, if you will. And they don't seem to want to increase the infrastructure for future development and to meet the water demands. I don't get it. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So I think we need to have a separate bullet point for the RDC to begin to engage the utility provider as far as planning. If not, they're gonna expect that we're going to next drill a well for Window Rock. Just to satisfy our small need for development.
I think the other thing too, I just have to tack onto that. So at a law conference yesterday, NTUA happened to be there presenting, and they talked about the Gallup water line pipeline coming in. And they're saying, well, it's all well and good, but basically they don't necessarily have a mandate on where to tap out. Like, they're just building the line. It's a straight line going down.
Yeah.
And they're looking to the tribe for guidance on, well, where is your economic development zones? Where are you going to do this? And so, I'm somewhat sympathetic to NTUA's predicament too, because we also need to all communicate on how we're going to build out and where our priorities are going to be as a nation, not just NHA's priority. But if we're all working together, then yeah, we have some opportunities there to really take advantage of what new water coming in and the ability to develop and create economic hotspots. I think the issue is that we're not all in the same room. We're typically fragmented and segmented, and I think what I would like to recommend for us to go to RDC with is try to come up with some sort of framework or just pull this all together and saying, this is where the economic hot zones are, this is where we're going to do this, and have some real concrete plans to build out. And that's kind of been the struggle for a long time, is that a lot of our entities are siloed and not necessarily under one umbrella. We're kind of all doing our own thing. And I'm stating some of this because it's obvious, and some we're putting it back on the record, and we continue to say it's not the first time we've said this, but I think it's important that we add that into the presentation next week with some sort of overall plan to say, can you as RDC bring us together in a meaningful manner? Get NTUA, IHS, NHA, community development, all the key players, NTUA, I might have said that, but all the key players in one room and figure out what it takes to get that framework out there. Because otherwise, NTUA is like, well, it's just going to be a straight line. It's going to go right through our area, and we're not going to create any tap outs to get the water out there. And so we have a lot of planning to do, but if we just sit on it, they'll just continue to build. And it'll go through the water that we could have used, we won't get. The other thing that was kind of, I guess, somewhat startling, but they said they're going to have a huge capacity. I can't remember what it was. It's like 80,000, and then we only have a need for 30,000, and so we're not necessarily even showing that we have the need, and so it's just going to keep going past us. So we have to develop that too, and saying, look, if we're gonna build here, we need to say that we do have the need here. So those are things to think about. But I would advocate for more communication between the utilities and us, because I agree with Madam Vice Chair that it's not in NHA's best interest to continue to build infrastructure for other entities to have the ability to build that infrastructure and simply hand it over. We can utilize that in a different way and kind of all play our best roles, and we can build houses and they can build utilities, but we can do it together. So I think that's important to stress as well when we go forward.
I'll give you guys a little bit of update. Last month, there was a recommendation from the board to look at legislation between all of it. In the last 3 weeks, or this month, we put it in the report because we've already met with NTUA, not NTUA, NECA. NECA's been on the table 3 times now. The last meeting we had a week and a half ago, we met with their engineers and stuff. They drill a lot of the wells for IHS at their road building. They can't find water. And we found out that they have the capacity to do this within their organization. They drill their wells either to give to IHS or NTUA. But at the same time, we found out that that they're in the same struggles of how to build out cross reservation. So we've been Nigel. We've been meeting with him and his engineer, and we've kind of fashioned some agreements together, which he's already, because they're working on their legislation for the operation, the plan of operation change with the NECA. So he's meeting with RDC and showing these are partnerships. We met with IHS, and IHS, we were asking, we want to know all you're doing, not the lateral, so we want to know where all of the big lines
are coming out, which Dave McDonald has actually, he was resistant at first, but now we kind of showed him what we have in terms of our information. He's sharing that now, opening up. The next one is the last one that's going to be is working with N2A. I think Boo has finally gotten willing to come to the table. And what we want to fashion is during our is what y'all request is in order for Navajo Nation to fill out, we have to have infrastructure. We got to have roads. We got to have utilities in order for household development. So we're going to bring everybody together and saying, okay, these are all the laws that fund us. How do we get legislation in Navajo Nation to support these changes so our funding is not restricted for us to work together? So that's the mode that we're in. We're pulling those groups together. So next month we should be able a good basis of how we're going to devise this, because we'll go in front of RDC and like you were saying, okay, do legislation. We have community master planning.
Yeah.
That's going to have to take all of us to work together to develop these big. So that legislation, because N2A's oversight is RDC, I believe.
Yeah.
NECA's oversight is RDC, NHA's oversight is RDC. So those big three programs there that we have, we'll fashion them together. And this goes into some of the other discussions that we'll have down the road. But that's kind of where we're stepping at. But we're going to need to bring in IHS down the road into this agreement, because they're the key ones that are that built a lot of this infrastructure. So that's kind of where we're at in a nutshell with that legislation portion. So we've opened up dialogue.
That's good. I think the other thing I want to add too is from that same conference, I asked NTUA a particular question about funding, but basically what they're doing is something called Light Up the Nation, or Light Up the Light Up Navajo. And within 8 weeks, they connected like, I want to say like 400 or a good amount of homes on Navajo Nation that didn't have electricity, and they're looking to do it again. And I think this particular round is going to be in March through May next year, and their target is 300 homes. And I asked them, I said, well, is it a funding issue? What set that cap for 300? Is it funding? Is it, is it available personnel power? What is it? And it's land use restrictions and right-of-ways. That's the issue. They said they could do more. They have the funds to do more, and they could get more capacity, but trying to get people that A, have the home site lease, B, have checked all the boxes on the kind of the bureaucratic process, and then trying to clear all the right-of-ways, that's their issue. And it's like, obviously it's an echo. We hear the same thing here. Trying to clear some of these things out, trying to build, trying to get the land use issues. I think that we do need to kind of to solidify our relationship with them and other entities. And I think that we have an RDC that kind of sees this fundamental change on how we need to approach the land development. And we're kind of in a unique time that we have funds available. We can get these projects off the ground. We just need to have some easier mechanisms of trying to open up the development in right-of-ways and not have to go through BIA, not have to jump through kind of the bureaucratic hoops, and also at the same time declare the sovereignty of Navajo Nation to be able to build the way it wants. It's really frustrating to go to these improvement projects and knowing that there was issues with BIA signing off on particular road projects or land development stuff, and that was what the longest wait was. And so we need to kind of come up with some better approaches on that, I think. And I think that we have a sympathetic ear at RDC right now to kind of push some of these things through that hadn't necessarily been capable in the past 20 years. So I would offer that. But Commissioner Lee.
Are you aware of these meetings the ICEO has with NECA?
Yeah, well, I mean, in general, I pushed them over to talk to NECA, and in one of the meetings we said,
Because where I sit with my emails, I don't hear anything from the ICEO or you about meetings that are going on. I don't know what's happening. I don't know what activities, you know, it's like having the same repeat again with the CEO with the lack of reporting of what meetings NHA is engaged in and what the result is. You know, even just the title of what the meeting is would give me an idea that, okay, something's going on over there. But oftentimes I don't get an email for the whole week about what's happening, or even 2 weeks. And I'm left thinking, is NHA doing anything? They're not keeping in touch with this commissioner, letting me know what's going on.
I would echo that, Mr. Chair.
okay. Can you make sure that you're getting more updates out in emails?
Okay. Sorry for that.
And the report that he turned in today, nothing in there about meetings.
So if we can get a more thorough report on your meetings, in that respect.
And outcomes or commitments. Yeah.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
My biggest concern is that it's a repeat of sitting in a silo effect at the highest levels of management, and separately the different managers, CFO, CAO, CO, sitting in their silos comfortably, not communicating with them. I thought the idea was to tap all the resources we had, come up with the plans, and move forward with house construction. But I don't really see that happening. That's why I'm sitting here really frustrated. I look at this sheet coming out of planning, and I see absolutely nothing for home ownership. Hope is the only thing out there. But that's what we had coming in 2 years ago. There's no additional projects that are in the pipeline to come out like that. And then I look at the reporting we get from housing management. It's 400 applicants looking for housing last month for PR, and over 200 people looking for home ownership. We've got a real need there, but you know, where's the home ownership units? Why aren't we doing that? You know, all of this new executive has been sitting there for a year or more, but certainly within the last 6 months, and I don't see anything new coming out. We've put out all kinds of ideas that we should be looking at, but it just seems to be pushed to the wayside, and I don't hear anything new coming out. I don't hear from planning, we're gonna go do new home ownership in Shiprock or Kayenta or Tuba City or Dilcon or these other areas, because you look at the numbers, they are putting on a lot of applications asking for housing. But I don't hear any of that. There's no plans coming from planning. And I don't know what it takes to get that stuff done. You know, it's like I've been talking to a wall the last 2.5 years. Get this stuff done. And all we get back is excuses. Well, I can't do it because we're following this, or we're following this, and following this. Well, that's fine, but you know, when we came in, we found out that a lot of the procedures that were in place and people are following don't allow easy movement or correct movement of funds to get projects established, and the creation of project managers who are overseeing the entire project. You know, getting houses built is the priority. Finance is the second entity that will allow the money to get where it needs to get so we get it built. But the project managers need to be managing everything, and the teams need to be all working together, not sitting in their silos. That's the perception I get. You know, I don't hear from certain people, but I hear from other people, and I appreciate that. You know, this organization could be incredible in its effect if everybody's working together and communicating and supporting each other in their tasks. But once those doors shut and people try to be comfortable in their silos, it shuts down everything that we've been working towards. And me, I'm outside of the silos, not getting any information coming my way. So,
Any comment on that?
In terms of communication with Nick, we haven't had a real big report to put out yet, because we haven't brought in, we're still trying to bring in all of the different entities, trying to fact find first. So, and it's been about a week and a half, 2 weeks that we've really been pushing. And we haven't had a solidified meeting to engage into where we can do, because the plan was basically bringing a conference call. Because from Nick's part, he wanted to look at bringing the board to boardship once there's kind of an idea of how we're going to do this. And that's where we're at now with the communication portion. With the other meetings for updates, for outcomes, and those areas, it's like yesterday. I was at 5 different locations, and I literally was traveling to Twin Arrows. I drove up the road. I was literally tired. Didn't realize where I was at. I turned around and I think for myself, for my defense, not defense, but just is that of trying to manage all of these areas. And there are some areas in there that we're working on to improve. But I think at one point, the mess that we had and what we're trying to work on now is taking a toll on a lot of us. And I think for myself, yesterday was a revision of myself. I literally was sitting driving 65 on the freeway, and I had good thing those road signs or road things on the side of the road snapped me. I only went off the road. Sat there and thought about everything that flashed. Because I left here late in the afternoon for a request for a meeting. Spent the night before trying to gather everything up for the Navajo stuff. Plus, at the same time, had some other HR that were trying to gather information. So there's some areas, I'm sorry, that provide information. But within those rounds of trying to keep everything up, it is a task. I know you've given us a lot of tasks that we're working on. There's a lot of areas that we're shooting at, just trying to pull those things together. And I think that one of the biggest echoes that keeps coming from management is the financial, the HR aspects of it. We need to establish that foundation, and we're in the midst of actually an idea. But one of the biggest things is I know that that is not echoed out there, and is that we toot our owners before we actually make something that's really solidified. And I would rather have a tangible, say this is a report written, and looking at that, we present that to. That's why today, with what we're looking at for investments, I know you've been asking for that for 2 years. Give me that insight that this is what we have, this is what the possibilities, this is where we need to go, which will march for all the stuff that you have vision. And again, we can talk more here in the afternoon, but I'm sorry if I'm missing in keeping you updated. And I'll remind chiefs on all the areas to copy you on, report on updates for the week. I know for the first month I was doing that, giving you updates. But when you spend 12 hours and dealing with multiple things, it's just to a point that your body doesn't comprehend. I mean, for myself yesterday, I should have knew I was tired when I backed into the key reader. I should have already said, well, something wrong, don't go. But I took off. But we'll talk more, commissioners, and we'll thrive with the communication of updates. Thank you, sir.
You know, I'm in the same situation, long hours on the road and all that. You know, my recommendation, and I said that when I started here, the safety policy needs to cover all of NHA so that the personnel recognize there's a certain amount of allowable time on the job, because you reach a fatigue level like you did, and that could result in an accident. You know, when I choose to come down here and drive, and when I do that, it's maybe to take in another meeting if I'm able to do that, and make myself more available. But the expectation is, with the schedule, with the way that we get reimbursed is I have to put on 12 plus hours a day driving, you know, in order to get here and have my own vehicle so I can get to where I need to get for meetings. You know, the last time I did that, I took in, I don't know how many meetings, 6 meetings maybe? And you know, it was to the benefit of NHA. But, you know, the organizations I've worked with before, they put a limit at how much time you're allowed to drive per day, which is 8 hours. You know, total work time, you know, no more than 10, you know, of sitting and driving. You know, then you cannot drive anymore. You know, and that's what, you know, you should keep in mind. You can't push that fatigue and then start running into stuff, backing into stuff, driving off the road. And I realize that in my occupation, working out in the oil fields, yeah, those rumble strips, they wake me up all the time. And that's on me. But when I come down here, it is a matter of driving a steady 12 hours and then try to get some quick sleep, get back on the road, and get back from the road and get over here as quick as I can. So don't push yourself like that. Get some of these duties, share it with other people. You know, that also lends to the perception of dwelling within the silo. You know, share that effort with other individuals. Give something new to somebody. Let them cut their teeth on that. You know, learn how to do it. You know, we all should be training our backups in case we have to step back, in case we can't take that drive because we're too fatigued. You know, let your number two do it. You know, let your coworker do it. That needs to be kept in mind. You know, I don't want you doing that, right? You know, and as far as the reporting, all I would like to just see is just it. I keep everything in my calendar. So if I want to see where I'm at, like a family member, I just copy that and send it to them. Like here's where I am this week. Or then for myself, this is the whole log of what I was doing, you know, where I was at. So that's a tool that I use quite a bit. And I am looking forward to using our commissioner's tool also, you know, for the documents and, you know, keeping track of the meetings and all that too. You know, the job isn't so important that you have to put your life on the line. Driving fatigue. So please keep that going.
I'd echo that, and I think too that it talks about the shared responsibility. I mean, if you're having trouble with the reports and putting those, you know, meeting reports together, there's, you know, Raymond, there's other people here around. Send it to us. I mean, if we just have an idea of what's going on, and you know, the weekly emails just to kind of see what's going on, I think it's very helpful. It's also it keeps us from having to just fill in what we think. You know, like it's going to give us a narrative of what's actually going on. And granted, we expect it here in the month-long, you know, the monthly updates here. It's very informative to hear of what kind of things are going on overall, especially when we've got things coming out of DC, things coming out of chapter areas, things coming from our own Navajo Nation government. We're kind of hearing it from different sides, and so if you add your narrative in there, it's really helpful. So, but yeah, safety's key. You know, like sometimes it's going to be a teleconference instead of being in person. They can set it up great. If not, maybe we can set it up and they can call them, you know.
I'd say again, work with the new safety person you hire. You know, about establishing that kind of requirement to look out for fatigue on the personnel. You know, when I'm reading in here about how well we're doing in getting our heavy equipment out and delivering it around and having it rented by people, I'm also thinking the operator is also the driver too. So they're taking it out and probably taking it back, and you know, how many hours are they on the road hauling a dozer around or excavator? It's like, that's big stuff. You don't want to be doing that fatigue. So, that's something that would ask you to work with the safety person about and establish a policy for fatigue, because we have so many people that drive crisscross the reservation, for NHA purposes that may be fatigued also. And the managers need to keep that in mind. You can't push people that hard. That's all.
Any further comments? Mr. Franklin, so I have one follow-up question on the demo at Tuba City. I saw the building was coming down when we were out doing that ribbon cutting. Who's doing the demo on that? Is it the contractor?
It's part of the contractor's job, yeah. It's got a subcontractor doing that. It's Rock Gap.
The reason I was asking was, have we started the demo on the place out by Bird Springs? Tulani Lake.
Tulani Lake? No, we haven't done the demo yet.
Have you guys looked into anything from the last meeting we had about operating our own equipment out there?
No, we haven't. There's a report in here on that very project. So on that project, what we have is, what we did is we went out and tested, we had the whole site tested for hazardous material, and we got the reports back. It's become part of the scope of work. Any special abatement requirements, and then now we are going to be demoing. We're in the process of hiring a contractor to do all the demolition of that project. A lot of these projects were held, the master leases were held in by another entity, and a lot of times in order for us to get a release of funds, we had to put those sites under our lease, and that's kind of what really held us back, was trying to get those leases back in our names, which we did. Now we can freely work on and have site control and get release of funds and move forward on those projects.
Is there an ETA that process normally takes, and we're having to take, I guess, what's the timeline that you generally factor in? The reason I'm asking is because we had said specifically about a year ago December, when we were out there, that this needs to come down ASAP, mainly because it is a liability aspect. And it's obviously a cost too, because we had to fence the whole area off, and we've got all these issues there. What's your timeline for having to take things that are maybe used to be in the sub-recipient's name, and then getting the title transferred over to NHA's name so we can act legally on it?
It takes anywhere, well, the last three that we've done, it took us a little more than a year to get to go through the whole thing and get everything in our name. And it's really going through the nominations SAS process, making sure that the environmental clearances are all complete, up to date, the title change, all that has to happen before we can actually put it in our name. So it takes, and there was a big issue about the lease. The master lease documents our lease documents wasn't matching the Navajo Nation's lease documents, and there was a big fight over that. That took a while to resolve, and finally we got that. We have a lease now that both DOJ from the Navajo Nation and from our legal department have compromised on, and that's what we're using now. And that was our first line of obstacles, but we learned from that. Now the last one that we're doing now is going a lot smoother now. We have a lot of, we're using those lease documents now for all the old land leases that NHA currently has. So our realty department is using those lease documents to transfer and put an update to the new master lease documents for our existing units out there. So that kind of paved the way for all our other leases to get updated.
And I'll go to Madam Vice Chair in a second. The question, I guess comment that I would have, it's more of a comment to the commissioners, is that I think that's a prime example of why the subrecipient program is not in our best interest. And anything coming up, we've got to do it a different way, because a year to get a building torn down because of land restrictions or the legal requirements that are put upon us. A, the project shouldn't have failed, but it did. B, when we try to get it back, it's taken us almost a year from the time we said, just hurry up and get this thing torn down, to even get in there and do it. It just really kind of, in my opinion, I know it's the board's opinion, but it's not a good process, and we should avoid it at all costs. Madam Vice Chair.
Mr. Chair, just thinking about Commissioner Lee's frustration and some of his pointed questions to our interim CEO. It seems like we're in reactive management mode, and it's still we're still in that mode, and we've been in that mode for a long time, even beyond our first coming aboard. And I think meeting after meeting, I become concerned that administratively managing our meetings and managing these questions that we had meeting after meeting, now year after year, or year times 2. And, you know, just looking through the reports and going to Tulane Lake, using that as an example, and seeing that the structures are still there. And we've been talking about it for quite some time. You know, managing the critical projects, managing critical issues or high-level issues, and taking care of it, because some of these critical issues are master leasing out of whack, our processes out of whack, our policies too old to use anymore. But for some reason, nobody's tracking those high-level issues and to get them done. So it's like business as usual. Our structures going into silos, just getting busy work. I mean, just getting the busy work done, it seems. And it frustrates me because the gentleman here this morning kind of, you know, what is that term? He more or less criticized us for saying that the only homes that we built were the homes built by Swift, and there's only 9 of them. That's what's in the APR. Ouch. You know, he also said that we're top heavy. I think that's what I heard him say. And, you know, there's probably a lot of truth to that. I think the other issue is that if we're attending meetings, we need to attend meetings not to be reactive, but to have a position that says we are a Navajo Nation entity. We have a separate board. We are essentially separate. We're more than willing to partner, but we won't be bullied into building homes in one little area of the reservation. We want to work with the RDC. We don't want to be micromanaged by the RDC. But again, it's all about partnerships, and I don't appreciate someone trying to bully us into making a decision to expend our non-restricted, unrestricted funds. So you have a team here, and it's a high level, high responsibility. Each of them has roles to do the work, even your admin staff. It's now time to do the work. It's now time to analyze. It's now time to delegate, represent you, but we don't have to attend every meeting, or you don't have to attend every meeting. But somehow I'm concerned that we are losing track of everything that we talked about, everything, our expectations, and I think even in other sessions, we, like the budget, I asked for a written directive somehow to log and track what we're talking about and to have some of those projects completed. So just one more statement, Mr. Chair. Just looking at like progress. You know, I like that information, but if that percent is over 3 years and we're at 9%, so I don't know what that number means, what it compares against, you know, what the baseline is and what the project end date is. And so some of the stuff, I need to know if it says 10% from what date and 10% to what date. I want to know the range, because if I'm seeing something at 99% and we've been at it for 4 years, it tells me a lot. It tells me that we're barely getting it done. Something happened along the way. We're 4 years into the project and we're finally getting done. Well, we can celebrate that, but somehow we have to figure out how to streamline our projects and how to streamline getting them done. So I guess I'm frustrated too. I am. And I want to see progress. I really, really do. And I would like to see homes built, but I know we have all these restrictions. And the important meetings are the meetings that mean we're going to build in the future, and we'll build a lot of homes and address the needs. Mr. Chair.
Questions for Ernest? I'm going to go right to the reports of those who report to you to see what the solutions are that you've come up with. And for maintenance, I'm looking at this phone line issue in Tohajua. Month after month after month that's on there, and I'm wondering what the solution is going to be. You know, what have you come up with for that?
Yeah, it's gonna, well, we finally got that resolved. We're gonna have we're bringing in the phone line into Tohajua. That's one of the big things that we have to do on NHA's infrastructure is to get all the 15 HMOs reconnected, and it's like building the highway for all our information. It's kind of like rebuilding the telecommunication infrastructure for NHA. We strengthen it and getting it better. So there's a plan to where Don is working on getting all his first goal is to make sure he gets all his Metro Ethernets all connected, and that's what he's doing right now. He's getting all that, and he's doing all the switching, routing. He's redoing the local land area. Reestablished, so that we can now that the foundation will be laid, then we're going to go back, and he's now working on building the advance or getting his data center up and running over in Window Rock. So all these things are part of the overall development of the IT. So we are reestablishing the highways, and we should have pretty good links that'll link up to all 15 housing management offices.
So this is occurring before the assessment's ever been completed for?
Well, we did our own assessment way back, and that was one of the things that we noticed, that the communication lines between our central offices and the 15 offices was in dire need. So now that the whole network is now being redesigned, rebuilt. Then we're also, now that he's also part of the IHP, he's now got additional funding sources to do what needs to be done. Because before he just had his own yearly allocation, and all he could do with that allocation was just do band-aid fixes here and there. But now we've got some serious resources now dedicated to building this new network that we're going to be using.
I'm not seeing any security assessment for our IT system. That's a big thing that I've been asking about for the last year. And you guys got hit with viruses this past week.
Yeah, we did.
And, I guess your only solution is don't open the email.
Yeah.
And you don't have a lot of sophisticated email users. Mm-hmm. They may not know the difference between left clicking or right clicking on something. On an attachment, that's a time bomb that's sitting there in your email. To me, that stuff should be caught before it gets out to everyone's email.
Yeah.
But, again, I've not heard anything like that. And I've been talking about this IT assessment for probably 2 years now.
Yeah.
And to me, it's a big question mark. And things get piled up and moved in front of each other as far as priorities go. When this phone situation raises the additional question to me, is the cell phone use and the PDA system, usage by maintenance, is that resolved too? It's not in here, but I'm wondering if that really is resolved. Do all the workers have access using their phones and their pads for doing the work they need to with maintenance?
What HCS did was when they came in with, mind you, without a contract or any written scope of work, they just came in and broke out what was used to be a centralized database, now has created 15 different databases. And that was not a very good solution on my part. I just like, why did they, that's something that shouldn't have been happening. So none of these databases are connecting to each other. So what we're trying to do now is we're trying to bring those databases back, and that's part of the highway, the baseline of what we're trying to do. Because all the PDA, they all work on either on a Wi-Fi network or on a cellular network. So that's and all the capabilities to connect into the cellular network have been completed. Yeah. So now we're trying to get that. So there are some security measures that are being built into the system. The only thing is that our biggest problem now is for people going outside of our network and then coming back into our network. That's what's causing all these viruses coming in. And when people go out to like hotels and things like that, they're using the free Wi-Fi. Mr. Sena issued a directive to stay off. If you're going to get on a free network system, or stay away from the free network and pay. And if you have to get access, pay for a secured connection out there. That's our biggest things when we leave our network environment, we bring that back with us. So that's kind of one of the protocols that we're going to be working through as far as how that's going to be taken care of. But our plan is going to be, once we build this network, once we get both campuses up and running, then we are going to cover it with a secure blanket with protocols. And also there's going to be training in there as far as how we're going to handle our secure connection out there. It costs money, and before, like I said, before it was just a Band-Aid fix, just because he was just using his own allocations to run his department. But now that we got new resources, we got new allocations that are coming down through the IHP, now we can actually start doing some serious upgrading and making this happen.
So when's the hardware solution going to be in effect?
We're still, you want to give a
date?
We do have plenty of security established.
Looking for a date of completion for the hardware.
Well, I think that we are looking at mid-year for acquiring all the new equipment that we actually put in the IHP.
Mid-2020?
Yeah, by March 2020. I did meet with my staff just a couple of days last week, and we did lay out a plan to actually get all this stuff in. We include all the timelines for procurement and delivery, and then actually deployment. So,
and all the staff cell phones are up and ready to go then?
The actual cell phones were delivered to IT yesterday.
I'm just asking, are they up and are they usable right now?
We actually don't have, some existing staff members have cell phones. We actually have to switch out the SIM cards and give them new cell phones.
So
it's just a hardware thing.
They're not ready. How about the pads? Are they ready?
I'm sorry?
The notepads? Are they
data cards?
Well, they got delivered Friday. They actually got delivered to our property and supply department, which they do the receiving. But given that they all had a workload over there.
When's that going to be usable?
Well, actually, we're on Friday, so we'll probably attack it on Monday.
When will it be usable? When will it be complete? I'm always looking for project completion.
Okay, I would say give us about 2 weeks to get that done. Because we had to call everybody that had the existing phones to come in and actually switch them out. And we were doing a schedule to visit all the sites out there through that.
Thank you. My other question is about this, the occupancy, ready for occupancy number. Now, we've had problems in the past between the number that maintenance comes up with, the number that housing has, the number that finance has. Ernest, has that been worked out yet?
We are working on getting that. That's one of the real problem is that HCS was not properly programmed to, because they were the ones that were supposed to bring those two, the occupancy and the vacancy together, but that hasn't, that was not built into the system. So what we're doing now is all our series of meetings that we've had so far has been how is that going to be resolved, because there was never when you read the HCS report, there was never a scope or a standard operating procedure was never implemented into how HCS was supposed to be used. So now we're going back and we're reestablishing those standard operating procedures for that communication to happen, so that can now be built. And we're going to go back after HCS to see if they can do it. If they can't do it, then there's just no use working with them.
Another question. This is to housing. The outstanding recertifications, why are the numbers so high for Crown Point and Tohatchee? Recertification for PR and recertification for HO. Ernest, what's the solution going to be there?
Yeah, one of our biggest, when that question was asked as far as did the buyout have any effect on our engineers, our professional capabilities, I said no, because we're going to a third party. But it did have effect on our people that are actually out in the field. We just didn't have enough staff to we still have a high vacant positions out there that we were trying to fill, and personnel has been working and making that happen.
Are we advertising those positions?
We are advertising them. We're filling them as fast as we can. Talk about having somebody drive all over the reservation. Heather over there she took note, because she's been driving like crazy everywhere, helping to do the interviews, get things in line, and getting people hired. So it's not just only with Dwayne's, his mentioning fatigue. It's happening with all our project managers, because our projects are so scattered across the reservation that they're coming in at 6 in the morning and coming back at 8 at night, just to meet the demand that we're pushing on them. I mean, the last time we did this, and I mentioned this to the HR consultant, is that the last time we launched a $150 million push was we had people were mentally breaking down on us, and people were having physical. We had 2 people have heart attacks, and it does put a tremendous amount of stress on the field people that are out there, because they do a lot of driving out there, and it's just a matter of this, everything's just scattered everywhere. So we have to go out there, and we only have our environmental person out there is going to all the scattered sites, all our new project sites, all the modernization sites. They're out there. There's only 2 people. We have one environmental person and one archaeological person, and those 2 are working like you wouldn't believe, just getting this thing done, getting the information that's required so that we can put packets together and get it through the Navajo Nation system.
So what's your anticipated fix?
So our anticipated fix is going to be for
personnel.
Well, right now I think we've got how many more vacant positions we have left out?
For my shop,
Yeah, for your shop.
We filled all the housing director positions. We just have the one that's going to start in Tuba City in a couple of weeks. And then we have a couple FTs that are very crucial to getting people on the wait list, and that's the intake process. And then we have a couple FTs, I want to say about 8 positions vacant as of now. And a lot of it had to do with the in-house advertisements. So a lot of staff transferred out, like Oho, they're operating on a 3-man crew over there as of just recently. Pine Hill, we didn't have a housing director, so I was overseeing that office, and we didn't have a housing specialist, and their housing specialists do the recertification. Same with Tohatchee, so that's the reason why. And remember, when they did a hold on the positions, they wouldn't help HMD for nothing. They wouldn't fill any positions. So we were sometimes running on a 3-man crew at some of these offices. So as division director, I stepped in to help and assist as much as I could. But when they made this decision, no, we're not going to hire, we're doing a hiring freeze, it didn't affect, it really affected my department.
So are you and the other managers, strategically doing hires for these positions?
Yes.
Evaluating, the extent of the duties that the position requires and trying to get the best people to fill those spots? And you're working closely with HR to do that?
I am. I know there's slumps, so they've assigned an individual to me, Miss Colette Monica, and she's been wonderful. So she's doing as much as we can. So we try to do, if like an HMO, we did 3 positions in 2 days. We advertised. We went out to Tuba City and we went back to back to back for 2 days just because of resources.
You didn't bring up Crown Point, but what's the solution there? Because there's 56 outstanding recertifications.
With that, we had a housing specialist who actually took the buyout as well. And I am addressing that with the 2 housing specialists and the housing director there. Because what usually happens is the housing director will step in and do some of the research, and then what just means that I step in and review the file. So that coordination wasn't there, and I did have the housing director out for a couple months due to medical reasons.
What date do you see when that's going to be solved?
We actually did our carries and KPIs the past 2 days. So for this upcoming year, we are addressing, I did come up with a plan for them to address it because we have to do the research. So they're actually going to have everything done by the 2nd week in November.
Does that apply to Tohatchee also?
Yes, it does.
2nd week of November?
If I can add, some of these recertifications have to do with the veterans. The veterans not wanting to come in and recertify for the HO. I believe we have about 20 veterans who refuse to come in and work with us because they say they should get a free house, that they have a $200 fee that should apply. So we're really trying to hard, and I know Mr. Truly's been working with the housing directors in regards to that, but they refuse to come in and do recertification.
You had issues of the doorways capabilities.
Out. And every homeowner that's still on the, on our listing as far as, so.
Is that dependent upon doorways working effectively though?
It all depends on doorways working effectively. The recertification.
That issue right there has been brought up for at least half a year.
Yeah. It had, I mean,
what's going to be the solution to doorways?
Like I said, the solution is if doorways can't handle it, then we got to find something else to do it. Because when they launched doorways, the actual pre-planning never took place. And
I've been asking this for a long time now, and in my mind, it's time to pull the plug on this thing.
Yeah.
Let's get a solution and move forward. Enough of this dragging this on and on and on.
Yeah.
Let's just put it aside and find something that's going to work. Heather recommends going back to HDS wins, but I'm looking at the whole IT system across the board with finance and construction. We've got to have that solution that works all across.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, that's where our non-programming money ought to go, if that's what it takes. We have an organism here and the blood's not flowing right, the arms aren't running right, our muscles aren't working right. Let's get these things fixed. Heal it up, do a bypass, do something.
Yeah.
Get this stuff, get this organism going right. And you got to cut something off, cut it off, and we'll replace it. As far as I'm concerned, I just want this operation running as best it can with the best software we got, the best tools at everyone's hands.
Yeah.
So we can make that step and not be shy about what the cost is, to me anyway, Because I'll fight for you to get the tools you need, whether it's training, but software and all that. You know, I keep saying this every couple of meetings, you know, my tenure's going to be coming to an end here. And I'd like to see that the entity I leave behind at least has good internals going in it, you know. The structure itself with software and all of that is top notch. And everyone's satisfied because everything works together. You know? No more silos. Even if it's because of hardware and software. That's the way I feel, and that's what I think when I see this doorway's concern there. You know, this is the other concern here with adjustments to tenant accounts, you know, being posted in a timely manner. I don't know how long I've heard that, but what's the solution to that? Is it computer related? Is it duties related to the individuals? You know, I'd like a solution to that. You know, you're sitting in a new chair. You've got power in your hands to make change.
Yeah.
Make the change. Make it easier on all of you. This third one, requesting the MEPA, the approval of that. Again, it's something that's been swirling around. You know, process-wise, we need to ease up the load on everyone so that, you know, what comes out is going to be sensible and timely. So. You don't need to be overloading yourself and the managers below you. You know, if there's a clear route, then take it. You know, even if someone doesn't like it, but it's the best outcome, please do it. I'll support you in that. Let's get this operation running as best it can. Support each other.
Yeah.
And then this last one on housing, I look at these complaints, outstanding complaints. For more than a year, you've got 44 complaints. In this other location, 14. I like it where the complaints that were closed this month, you know, we've got that, but these complaints that drag on and they haven't been closed, what's the reason for that?
I believe it's just the interpretation of closure. The housing director has closed it at their level, but they haven't notified us and given us a solution, and that's how we'll close them. So I met with the housing directors the past 2 days, like I indicated, and we come to terms on how we're going to resolve that. We come up with a plan, and as part of our KRAs and KPIs, because it states we are to close all customer complaints in 10 days unless we don't have control over it and it has become a legal case. So I did address that. I am taking this back because what happened was I was overloaded, and it is my fault. I assigned it to one of my staff at H&D to take the complaints and monitor, and that's not being done. So I put it back on myself to go ahead and address all the complaints and concerns and close them out with my housing directors in a timely manner.
Just as a managerial, you know, thought on that, you know, the person doesn't complete the task, you know, train them to complete it. You know, you need to be able to pass that on, you know, because you can't be doing that while you're driving all over the reservation.
Policy says that I'm supposed to close them out. So.
Try to train the person that's going to be replacing it, as needed. When you can't handle something, they can take it over. You need to be able to build that into the system. Everyone works optimally and can support each other. They see you that you're overloaded, you know, the people who report to you say, hey, I can take that on.
Yeah.
You know? And that's a matter of just, to me, I've seen that in weekly meetings. Staff meetings. You know, you discuss what's going on, and they say, hey, your plate's overloaded. You know, I can take that task on. But they have to be trained to do that. That's all. Thanks.
Well, yeah, I appreciate your comments, and I just want to comment saying that you know, these issues have been there for ever since I've been here. But the problem was we never had the resources to do it, and thanks to this commission, we were able to get the monies that were set aside for the new phones, for the Metro Ethernets, for things that are now being built now. Before, there was no funding source. I mean, we had to fight tooth and nail just to get some sort of system in place. But now that we have additional new resources, we are headed in that direction. It is going, and I was telling everybody that it's like working on, when you're working on a freeway, you have all these long lines of people just, in line trying to get through these construction sites. It's going to be like that for a while until we finally get it done, and once it's done, it'll be open. It'll be an open highway for everybody. It's just a matter of building that system now, and it hasn't. Like I said, it wasn't. Everything was just being band-aided just because of the funding source that we were working with. But now that we have this new funding source, we're moving forward. We're starting to actually build the highway, and then just meeting with Heather's group, we had like 4 meetings, and just pretty much discussing SOPs, roles and responsibilities, and putting together the flow charts and everything else, and reestablishing the standard operating procedures has really opened up. I think it's going to be something that's going to be solid and can work very well in the future. It's just a matter of now just implementing what we're doing over here and making sure that the IT can support that very function. So I appreciate it, and we are moving forward, and we will have this system up and running. I did set a deadline for the operation to be done in March. That's what was brought up. So I put together our goals and objectives, and I passed it out to all the managers. They're using that now to establish their own goals and objectives, and we're standing on the 6 pillars that Dwayne had given to us. We're making sure that we improve communication, we improve the occupancy rate, we improve the accountability, we improve the partnerships with other entities outside of NHA, and then also how we're going to address the Indian housing plan as far as what from here on out. So I have Nolan working with the communities now. He's gotten all his chapter resolutions together. He's got his team ready for a strategic session. They're going to redo their 5-year plans for modernization, for new development, and have that based on all the information that's been gathered so far, as like right there, building that major water line that's coming down. And Calandra has been played a big part as far as getting these entities together and starting to share information with each other. When she was the one that established a meeting with IHS based on directions from Dwayne over there. So now IHS is saying we have trunk lines going here, and there. So once we took the step forward and started giving them our projects and saying this is what's on our Indian housing plan, we're starting to see that feedback back from them so that we can actually get this whole thing running.
Let me just add something if I could. I really appreciate when there's things under the major issues and concerns. And I think it'd be a good thing internally if all managers, get your items in there. Don't feel like you shouldn't put anything in there because you're looking out for the person above. As a board member, I don't know about this stuff unless you put it in there. And in earnest, you need to put that in there also. The bigger items, those issues, we could get involved as commissioners and talk to IHS or talk to these other entities, and try to find a solution with you. But I greatly appreciate all this. I want to know what's going on inside as much as possible. Thank you.
We'll go to Arnie. You got a comment, and then we'll go to Terry.
Oh, I just wanted to give a little support there to Heather on those recertifications, especially on the HOs. Part of the requirement for them to do the recertifications are annual inspections, and we flat out have homeowners who refuse to cooperate with NHA to get those recertifications, but allow us in to do the annual inspection. So that's part of some of the reasons why some of the vacant some of the HOs are not recertified. because they're just not cooperating with NHA on a whole, so. We get there, we schedule 3 times, the gate to their lot is locked up and they're not there, even though they said they would be there multiple times, so.
What's the typical enforcement mechanism for something like that?
That would be back under housing.
We would process it through legal department, but most of the time legal department will say you need to work with the families. So it ends there, and then we back up a square one. And not just with HO, with public rental as well. They want us to do a resolution, do a settlement agreement, work with the families, and they said it would cost more to go through court and do a forcible detainer than it would to just work with the family. So that a lot of the times that's where we're stuck.
Do we ever utilize the peacemaker process? I know the answer to this, but I mean, I'm asking again just to put it on the record.
I'm not sure, but as soon as legal tells us, work with the families, we have done that. I'm not sure. I couldn't say yes or no to the peacemaker.
But we don't. So that's the answer.
Yeah.
And it seems like something, it's less costly.
Yes.
You don't have to hire anybody. You can go in there. Lawyers aren't allowed to go in the peacemaker process. It's probably more beneficial for us to try to create some healing. I don't see any positive outcomes from mistrust and not being able to recertify. The other part I think is it endangers our particular funding when we can't say that we're doing our job. And so, just take a look at that potentially as another route, because if we're just going in circles and continuing to land back at square one, then what are we doing? It doesn't make any sense.
And actually, when I met with the housing directors yesterday, we scheduled to have legal attend our session as far as their processes and procedures were concerned, and how do we get through these so that way we're not stuck. We have different advocates who have different ways of dealing with certain things, so we want to bring legal, we want to bring Laverne and her team in to educate us on what they're doing as far as their standard operating procedure, so we're all in unison, we're all the same, we all operate the same. So we do have that planned for November 12th.
Sure.
Oh, I was just going to add a couple of more thoughts in regards to the goals and objectives that Dwayne has us doing, these guys are doing, housing management is doing. And as far as admin branch, I think this is where the strategy comes in, and the discussions I've had with the branch chiefs and what the functions are within their particular issues as far as transforming the support culture and the delivery of our services. And we have identified as branch chiefs that as far as support and functions that we lend to each other, it's not a matter of process anymore. It's a matter of the strategy and how we change and how we're adding value to each area and function. Because if you really look at it, and when we talked about the weaknesses within our organization, we're a process. We've pretty much just been processing the services rather than taking a step back and say what value do we add in all of it. And what Dwayne's been hammering to us is all comes with the IHP. Do we know our business the way we should be? So that comes back down to training. So I know that HR has a lot on their plate as far as support services and delivering that information out to the departments. And then another aspect of that is going back to our 5-year plan. So now looking at it from a marketing perspective, I have to now change the minds and thoughts within the support services on how we're going to shift our culture as far as what we're doing for the organization. So that's my charge for this whole year, and I know that Dwayne's asked me to put together a 5-year plan on how that's going to take place and how, what's our timelines and getting that up and running. And yes, a lot of it does have to do with the underlying support of information technology as far as innovation. So we are having those discussions in regards to what we're going to be doing on the procurement end for these agreements that we're having with all these other entities, and how we're going to try to work through the nuances of the regulations in doing so. So that's just to add that we've been involved with the discussions with NECA, with HDS, with Ernest, and how we're going to support the demands of the organization. So that's kind of really our charge this year, is to get down to the nitty-gritty and what do we need to roll out to change how we're currently doing business in a nutshell. So I still have to draw out the whole plan, and so the exciting thing is we have some new managers coming on board who have a lot of ideas and insights of how we're going to do that. For example, our safety manager, who's on board and has a lot of ideas of how to do some of this stuff. So that's just to give you a little tidbit in addition to what these other guys are saying. I just wanted to add that.
Two things I'd offer to the board if they're interested. So we're dealing with, this is a different crew than when we started with, obviously. And I think over the years we've continued to ask for things, and I think one way to maybe go back is maybe have somebody from the team, and we have the good fortune of recording the board meetings.
Yeah.
Let's have somebody go back through, it's more than 24 meetings, it's a lot to watch obviously, but go back and document and say, well, we've asked for this, and this at this meeting, and record them all. And it doesn't need to be this huge comprehensive document, it just needs to be like an Excel sheet and saying, board asked for A, B, C, and D, and this next meeting they asked for this, and this. Just a simple review, and we can go back through and kind of either A, say, yes, this has been done, B, it's continuing, or C, it's not relevant anymore. And we can visit that document every month and just say, look, we've outlined over the last 24 board meetings, or whatever, however many it is now, it's a little more than that, and saying these are priorities for us as a board, and this is things that we want to know about or ask about. And some of these things have already been fulfilled, and we're glad to hear that. But some of them, kind of get, out of the collective mind of NHA, and then they're just kind of out there. And I'd like to follow up, and I think the board would like that, and I think that's exactly what Frankie was talking to, Commissioner Lee was talking to, is that there's a lot of things we've asked for that seem to be hanging out there that we didn't get, and they're important, otherwise we wouldn't ask for them. But I'm totally cognizant of this. A lot of you are new to your positions, or you're working within a realm that's newer, and maybe you didn't hear us because you weren't here. And I'm glad that you're here now, but we still need to go back and revisit that. And so I'm not laying blame on anybody. Like, well, why didn't you go back and watch all those meetings? Because that's not necessarily what you would do. But can we have somebody? And if it's the board's
My notes.
if it's the board's agreement, we create a board directive. You assign somebody to go back, and next month give us that outlay and saying, this is everything you've asked for. This is where we're at with it, and we can look, and if there's something that hasn't been addressed, but it just doesn't need to be addressed, we don't need to do that. Or maybe something's changed fundamentally. If you guys are in agreement, if you all are in agreement. Sure.
We need to track them.
I think
can remember.
I think it's important to track, but it's also important to bring everybody either A, to see what we need to still accomplish, or B, see how far we've come on top of that, because some things I know we've addressed. But there are these outliers, such as Talani Lakes. I think it's kind of more of a matter than just looking through the minutes to see, we need to actually look through and see what were the hard asks that we'd asked for, and if they continually show up every month and go, oh wow, they've continually asked for something like that. But I think it'd be important to do that. Commissioner Lee.
The only one that I know that's been here the entire time is sitting right over there, Doreen.
Doreen, you're in trouble. No, I'm just kidding.
Tap her memory.
But it's a lot to remember, and I appreciate everybody's hard work here, and I know that we sometimes come off as demanding, to say the least. But we're trying to get somewhere, and like Commissioner Lee says, our tenures will end at some point as commissioners, and we want to leave you with the most capable NHA that we can as we step off the board. So it's important, and we're trying to push toward this, and when we see things sitting out there for more than 6 months to a year to even longer, we start getting concerned, because we see the end in sight for us as board members, and we want to make sure we hand off the organization in the absolute best condition that we can, so it can continue to grow and meet the needs of Navajo people. So we're here. We're your best supporters, and I think that I'm glad to hear that Ernest said that you feel that you've got some tools there available to could lead us into the next generation, because we're going to need that. We're going to absolutely need that, and that's how everybody else is solving their issues, is using technology to work faster and more efficiently. I think you've got a board here that sees that as the way forward, and will continue to make those investments. And yes, they are costly, but it's even more costly to be stuck in 20-year technology slowing us down, and that doesn't help us grow. And so as we're looking forward to, video conferences and internet, and bringing those things, and bringing the telephone to an HMO, I think that's our priority for us. So, any further comments before we let Mr. Franklin finish?
I'm not ready to dig into CAO report.
Okay,
Mr. Chair,
Madam Vice Chair.
just a good note regarding the attention to the tar, even though we go up slightly. Comparing to a year back, we're significantly down, so I think that speaks to your work, Heather, and work out in the field. But I'm kind of wondering, so as tar goes up minimally but stays down compared to last year, you have the same people doing recertifications and getting behind on that, or you depend on the HMOs to do the work. And Terry is saying that we really want to place value in the aspects of customer service, because that's who we are as NHA, instead of just implementing a process that doesn't really get you to completing some task or whatever. So are the same people working on TARs and recertifications, and your issue is you don't have enough people out there and you need more people? Or why is it that we do good here and then we're not doing good there?
It goes back to the positions.
To the positions, okay.
It goes back to the positions where I've had to have some staff take over the FT position and then work as an HD, and then I'll give you another example, like Donato, the FT that was there transferred out to Treasury, so we don't have an FT there. So the HT moved up to the housing specialist position, but since she knows the FT position and the HT position, she's doing those two positions because they're not filled. So I have contacted HR to see if we could get those filled, but we got a notice back saying that those positions aren't priority right now, that it's the higher positions that are priority. But I stress that we bring in the revenue, we recertify, we do the wait list, we go out there and do the application drive, so that, and I need those positions priority for me, because it's affecting my results here, and I have to justify this every time I come to the board meeting. Our TAR is like this because of this, and and one of the biggest things I can mention is me not having a housing directors meeting for over 2 years. I finally met with them. We did our strategic plan together. How are we going to attack this year? How are we going to have good outcomes? And that was really necessary for me. So thank you, Mr. Franklin, for allowing me that time to meet with them to see what the problems are. Now I have a bigger view of what we need to do out there. And so our KRAs and KPIs for the year are very specific to goal related, date related, and how we're going to accomplish these goals this year, which I haven't been able to do for 2 years. So this year is going to be a great year for us, if we can get printers back in our offices.
Well, and that too. So I would agree with you that positions out in the field are a priority. I mean, every vacant position and filling them